Hello, my name is Ellen Buckner, and I'd like to welcome you to the National Academies of Practice Advocacy 101 webinar. Today, I am joined by Dick Danielson from Audiology, Janet Deppy from Speech Language Pathology, Dee Schilling from Physical Therapy, and Melanie Browser, our NAP Executive Director, and I represent nursing. We're here to tell you about preparing for the legislative visits that will be done on the Hill preceding the NAP annual conference and forum. So today we will be sharing with you some ideas about what it takes to plan that visit, and we welcome you. We are an interprofessional team, and we've prepared this webinar, which is the first of three, to introduce you to the legislative visits on the Hill. Don't worry if you've never done that before. You'll have a preparation of these three webinars, and we will prepare you for that, and you'll work with your legislative group or team that day. Your questions are welcome, and we will take those questions at the end of this webinar, so please send them via the chat mechanism for our platform today. Finally, this presentation is being recorded and will be available on the NAP website after the end of this presentation. Welcome. Our agenda today is to define advocacy and why it is important, and tell you a little bit about our message, to develop a game plan for how you do legislative visits, and the details or logistics for planning that visit. Yes, slide. As we said, going to the Hill is a process. It is a political process as we connect with our legislators and enjoy the company of each other, championing the issues that we care about in NAP. Next. So let's look at NAP's definition of advocacy. What is advocacy? According to NAP, it is the education and information for key stakeholders and policymakers around specific issues or causes to guide what is in the best interest for individuals, communities, and society's health and well-being, using available research, expertise, and collaborative relationships to bring an interprofessional voice and perspective, therefore fulfilling NAP's purpose and mission. So what is advocacy? Process by an individual or a group, in our case NAP, which normally aims to influence public policy. An advocate is a person who works effectively to bring about positive change. Grassroots advocacy is an organized way to achieve change that benefits a group of professionals such as ourselves and consumers. Grassroots advocacy involves organizing groups of individuals with common interests and providing information to decision makers to help them make informed decisions. At this point, I will yield to my colleague, Dee Schilling.
Thank you, Ellen. So why is advocacy important? Advocacy is important because it empowers and accomplishes goals. It provides us the opportunity to participate in government and local decision making. It fulfills your obligation of professional practice. When you advocate and engage in advocacy, you serve as the voice for your patients and clients. It promotes the education of what NAP is and who we are as an interprofessional organization. Most importantly, you have the right to advocate. This is your opportunity to share your expertise and to make a difference. So what is NAP's message? NAP has worked very hard to create a unified and consistent message and narrowed it to these 3 points. 1, NAP advocates for access to quality interprofessional health care. 2, interprofessional health care is best for patients, families, and caregivers because it improves patient outcomes. And our 3rd message is policies are needed to support interprofessional care models and research. Details of this message will be in 201 and 301, and I will now turn it over to Dick.
Thanks, everyone. I'm sorry I had trouble with my computer, so I'm just on the telephone. But let's talk a little bit about a game plan. So thanks for Ellen and Dee for outlining why advocacy is important for our goals and what those goals are. So obviously, this weekend is the big Super Bowl, and you can be sure that the teams are preparing for their game plan for success, that is, winning this championship. So in this section, I'd like to talk about our own NAP game plan for advocating interprofessional healthcare, including these visits to the congressional offices next month. Next slide. The NAP partner that we have is terrific because fortunately we don't have to prepare our own game plan from scratch. NAP has contracted a knowledgeable partner firm, Prime Advocacy, and they are already on the sidelines and stand ready to guide our interactions with these legislators and their staffs by first creating teams of NAP professionals like you, working in multiple disciplines as we are, but with common goals for patient care. Secondly, setting up schedules and routes and support materials that will help maximize our time management and our effectiveness during our legislative visits. And finally, coordinating the important follow-up communications that are necessary with congressional offices that verify our earnestness about interprofessional practices and our availability for further interactions. So, how do we develop this plan of action? Well, it's already begun by gathering a group of like-minded individuals to spread this NAP message, identifying the primary advocacy issues, and then setting priorities for determining what the preferred solutions could be. Our advocacy roles must be realistic goals and use timeframes that allow us to realistically achieve those goals before the end of this 116th Congress. As you'll hear later, you may not achieve this goal on the first try, but be prepared to accept small successes and with us build on those in the future. Let's talk about NAP's role. Although NAP doesn't have a specific bill to support at this time in this new Congress, our ongoing message can still emphasize such things as identifying and developing legislative champions out there for improving healthcare, access, reform, accountability, and workforce development. Focusing on the interprofessional education and practices that we talk about, and as we know, impact people working in healthcare workforces and affect all Americans. Another role is to build bipartisan support, which is obviously very critical, as you've seen in the news in Congress these last few weeks, by emphasizing our interprofessional approaches. You see, this interprofessional approach, rather than approaches by many individual professional disciplines, is a new concept and could emphasize the substantial work that needs to be done system-wide. So, is there some homework? Well, there is, but we're going to get some support again from NAP and our contract. First, it's important to understand your audience, just as if when you speak to a group of your peers or your professions, your audience, to understand their needs is very important. So let's talk about how we can get to know our congressmen and senators. Among them, you can simply step in if you have time to look at the web and type in your district or a district of interest and find out their political views, their policy interests. For the more you know about the legislator's expertise and interest, the better you'll be able to know his or her support for your issue. You can learn about their legislators' constituents. Do they have a heavy population of senior citizens or migrant workers or military folks or research institutes that involve patient care? Gives us a chance to identify their committee assignments. Each of them has worked real hard to get a committee assignment, and their role to recognize that is important, to read their biography and their personal interests, and identify through that their political agenda. So given that, let's plan on how we approach it through the most powerful influencers, which is, like in your own care and work with your family and your community, face-to-face communications. You'll hear it now and can keep this in mind. An important concept of this visit is that the aide who greets you at the door might be the one who's actually hearing your talking points. These visits may take place on the Hill, but they can also take place in their home office in their district or state. Keep in mind that House members generally have from 6 to 8 members and staff members located in their district office, and senators usually have 10 to 14 staffers located in the state office. Another influencer is to write an original letter, sending a concise letter that mentions your principal talking point, date of visit, and follow-up actions that were discussed. And finally, now or at any time, phone calls can be an influencer. They definitely have had the phones ringing in Washington this last month. To move on with the shutdown, they get logged. Encourage your colleagues and your citizen patients to call in to express their interest in need for more interaction and more cooperation with government and healthcare providers. And finally, there's always email. So what works best, as Blackwell said, is personal, thoughtful communication. And you'll be hearing now in the next section how to plan this legislative visit and communicate thoughtful communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. So we've talked a lot about how important it is to learn more about your members of Congress, to be more, have more of an understanding of their concerns and issues, their political perspectives. It's also important to learn what committees they sit on. Are they committees that oversee issues that we as NAP are concerned about? We've also learned that it's important to know how best to influence people. And our job as advocates is to be able to be good influencers. So we want to know what those ideas are, how to best to do our job to influence them. And we know that direct communication is the best, and we'll have the opportunity on March, I forget the day, March 7th, I believe, March 6th, March 7th, to actually meet with them directly and present our message. Next slide, please. So in planning our visit, one of the things that we felt was important was to provide every NAP attendee with an orientation. So there will be this orientation or briefing session that will occur at 8 a.m. on Thursday, March 7th. At that meeting, you'll receive a fact sheet and some talking points. You will be able to provide some background information, some data, some research facts that support a position that we want to take. We'll all be assigned to an interprofessional team. The appointments will have been pre-scheduled for us on the Hill. And it's important to remember that you'll be with a group of other interprofessional advocates. They may not be people you know, and you may not get to visit your own legislator, but we're all going with the same talking points and the same united message. Again, as Dick said before, it's important to also know that you may be meeting with staff. In fact, you probably will meet with legislative staff or some of the legislators' aides. And I can tell you from my own experience, sometimes you walk in the door and these people look younger than your own children. So you have to be prepared to understand that you'll be meeting folks that will probably not be your legislator or a legislator. But oftentimes these are folks that have an ear to the legislator and they understand the issues even better. Remember that most legislators have to be generalists. They have to know a little bit about a lot of things. So that's why they have a lot of staff and aides to help them understand messages from advocates, constituents, understand why why these points of view are so important. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you bring your business cards. And at those meetings, you want to ask the staff or the legislator, whomever you meet with, for their business cards as well. This allows you to ask any follow-up, or for them to ask you any follow-up questions, rather, and that you can then provide any additional information because you have their contact information. Remember, as Dick said, that our assistant here will be Prime Advocacy. They're setting up these teams for us. They will help us with the information we need from NAP to present a unified voice with our talking points and a fact sheet to leave behind. These will all be really good tools and helpful for us as we move forward. Next slide, please. So a few things to remember about your actual visit. The first thing is that you always need to be on time. I can't say that the folks that you'll meet with will always be there on time, but it's important for us to be on time. And because it's of the enhanced or increased in security around the office buildings there, you need to remember that you need to maybe take some extra time. There might be a line to get in the building, and then it takes a while to get through security once you're inside. So you want to make sure to build in that extra time so that you can be there on time for your visit. You also want to remember that when you deliver your message, you want to be accurate, you want to be concise, and you want to stay on task, on message. Sometimes you have 5 minutes to meet with a staff person, sometimes you have 20 minutes. Whatever time you have, you want to make sure that you've gotten your points across, the most important points, and you've delivered the message that you want to deliver. You want to have facts and data support a position. You want to make sure that you use plain language, language that you think anyone will understand, your legislator, the staff member. You want to use examples where possible. Examples are I think, really helpful. Sharing a story or a personal situation or a story from one of your patients or consumers, that also helps a legislator and his staff visualize what you're talking about. Remember to keep your visits short. Legislators and staff have many constituents to see and many other meetings to attend. So you want to make sure you do all those things. Be sure before you leave to ask for support. If you have a position, and I'm not sure NAP will have a specific goal in mind or ask in mind, but when you meet with legislators, it's typically very important to be able to ask for support for your issue and then wait for a response. For many of us, it's hard to sit there quietly and wait for our legislator to respond, but that's a really important thing, to give them time or give the aide time to think about what you've said, ask any additional questions, and then be able to provide you with an answer. You also want to agree to provide any other additional information they might need, and then make sure you do follow up. That's very important. Okay, some tips about visits. We've talked about most of these things. On the positive side, you want to always be positive. You want to begin and leave with a positive message. We talked about you want to ask for support. You want to wait for a reply. We're going to talk a little more in a minute about writing a personal thank you note after the visit. And believe me that personal handwritten thank you notes are still the best way for us to convey our appreciation for the time that a staffer or a legislator met with us. You want to make sure you inform others, our NAP leadership and others in our group about the results of your visit, what happened. And then again, we want to be able to follow up with any information that might have been requested or that you think would be valuable to share with folks. It's important not to be confrontational. And believe me, sometimes you meet with people who do not share your views, do not share your values, do not share NAP values. And it's hard sometimes to stay positive, but you will go a long way in developing and delivering a message that's positive and gets across the points that we're trying to make without running into some sort of confrontation. It's also important to stay on message. Most legislators, if you have an opportunity to meet with one of them, are really good at sort of talking about other things, getting you thinking about other things that might be important to you or to them. It's easy to get off task. You don't want to do that. Your time is precious. There's probably little time to meet with them, and you want to get your message across to them. We talked before about being careful not to use too much jargon or professional nomenclature. They need to hear your message in plain language. And then finally, you don't want to overstay your welcome. When it's time to go, it's time to go. Even if you haven't gotten all your points across, that's maybe an opportunity or another opportunity to follow up with the staffer or with the legislator if you haven't been able to convey all the points that you want to convey. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so after our visits, there will be a debriefing Thursday afternoon at 4:30. This may be an opportunity for you to write your personal thank you notes. They may be available to you there, and you can write a handwritten note after your visit. NAT may also have a form that's available to you to record your visit. Again, it's very important to know who supports our issues, who needs more information about our issues, who might be opposed to some of the things that we're trying to say, and what are the kinds of information that would help convince them. And the other thing I guess I always want to convey is you remember that in all of these kinds of situations, all the meetings that you will have, you're the expert. You're the person that knows the most about the message you're trying to convey. But it's still okay to say, I don't really know the answer to that question. It gives us more opportunities to get back to folks, to share with them additional information, to begin to develop some of those relationships that are so critical to making decisions and helping legislators move our issues forward. Let's see. So remember your thank you note. Remember to answer any questions or plan to get back with answers, and then be sure to report the results of your visit. Those are all very important. So thank you.
So just a reminder to all of our attendees, if you have a question for the panelists, feel free to type it into the chat box. And we have a few moments, we can take some Q&A. We do have a question from one of our attendees about going to the Hill with other team members who may not be from the same state. And the question is, how will these teams and visits be determined? And we will actually be working with Prime Advocacy, the partner that Dick mentioned. This firm schedules Hill visits literally all the time, and they have a very good relationship with the legislative offices. So they are actually taking all of the information that you submit when you register for the forum and indicate that you'll be doing Hill visits. We're collecting your cell phone number, your home address to know your state, and Prime will receive all of that information and be putting the teams together based on constituency, but also based interprofessionally, so that we have interprofessional groups of 3 or 4 making the meetings together. We have another question. Great information today, and thanks for presenting. And the question is, how many NAP members we expect to be participating in the Hill visits? And I can say that we did a straw poll a couple of months ago to ask members who planned to attend, and we learned that about 65 to 70 people had planned on it. We currently have 55 members that have registered and indicated that they'll be doing the Hill visits. So I imagine we'll have between 55 and 65 people total this year. Another question has come in. When will we know who our specific group is assigned to see so that we can research that specific legislative staff member? And I can say that Prime Advocacy, as we said, is doing the scheduling for us. And they've advised us that really it's best, you get the best, most accurate schedule if handed to you the morning of your visits on Thursday morning. We realize that doesn't give you time really to do a lot of research and preparation. So we are looking to try to provide a very quick, broad sheet that would tell you for each legislator what some very high level points are that they may be their views on issues, so that you can quickly see that morning. But because it's difficult to schedule these appointments sometimes and there's changes, the best, latest, greatest schedule is the one that you'll receive the morning of. So we will have time during that morning breakfast briefing for you to receive your schedule and then meet up with your other team members that will be in your group. Another question is, that someone has not registered so far with NAP, but can they still participate? And the answer is definitely yes. Our early bird registration for the NAP Forum actually ends tomorrow on Friday, February 1st. However, we will be taking registration for several more weeks, and you can still indicate that you'd like to participate. We will start sending the list of participants to Prime Advocacy next week, but we'll be sending them updates on a weekly basis between now and our visits on March 7th. So yes, you still have time. Any other questions? These are great questions. Oh, we have a question about the, as we mentioned, this is our 101 level, and we are doing a 201 and 301 webinar. And the question is, do we know when those will be presented? And we do not know exact dates yet. However, they will be in the month of February, so that you have time to join or to view those recordings before our visits on March 7th. So as soon as those dates are confirmed, we will be sending out information to all the NAP members through the NAP Times and also through email blasts.
This might also be an important time to reiterate that we're not asking you to be an expert about legislation, about politics at all. This is about your expertise on interprofessional education. And we will be given the tools by Prime Advocacy and NAP to be able to navigate. We just need your voice, and we need you to be heard. And you're bringing your expertise by what you know about your profession and what you know about interprofessional and how both interprofessional education and practice make a difference for our patients, clients, and students.
Yeah, this is Dick. I've got a question. It's great to have people here at 101, but can you give us a teaser of what we'd expect to hear by signing in to 201 and 301? What are the topics that will be discussed then?
Mm-hmm. Certainly, great question. So the next level, our 201 level, will really be touching on the aspect of doing legislative visits as an interprofessional team, because that certainly, as we mentioned briefly today, is different than what everyone is used to in the meetings that they've had for their own profession. So we're going to touch on what that means. We'll delve more into talking points on NAP as an organization that you can use. And then our 301 level will be much more detail around what our message is going to be and what we want to leave with legislators.
Right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And just a quick reminder that our 201 and 301 will also be recorded, and we will be posting the recordings of all three webinars to the NAP website under the advocacy portion. And we'll be sure and send that link out to everyone as well. We are asking you, everyone that is planning on doing the Hill visits, we ask that you do view all three webinars, just even if you've done Hill visits before, as a refresher on things, and again, to just think about it from the interprofessional lens. Any final questions or thoughts? All right. Well, I so appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much to our interprofessional panel. We appreciate the presentation, and we look forward to seeing everyone with the 201 webinar very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.